Kumlen and Ablak Mother. Today's daf is Daf Zion. This is Tuesday. Yesterday we covered in the Mishnah an interesting machlokes. We had what happens if a kohen gets engaged to someone that is forbidden to get engaged to, for example, a divorcee, or for example, a kohen gadol marries is engaged to a widow. So the mayor said that they cannot eat truma, even if she's a bas kohen. And she cannot, as a wife, she cannot eat truma. We already mentioned yesterday that the two reasons why an arusa cannot eat truma, because either simpoinus, maybe we'll find she has some defects and the whole condition will unravel. Turned out to be was a mekar tos, the whole thing was an error, or because she might feed it to her family. But if she's a bas kohen, she can no longer, even though she's only engaged, she can no longer continue eating as a bas kohen. And the reason is because you're already anticipating to do a bia of an avera, to get married, so therefore you already have to stop now. And Abelazar of Shimon says at the moment he didn't disqualify, he didn't turn into a cholo, so she can continue eating truma. Then we said that, but if let's say she got married and then the man died, he already disqualified her too late. From that, we segued into a discussion about a psuadaka kohen, a kohen who had crushed testicles, was not allowed to marry into the kol. He's not allowed to marry. He's not allowed to marry Bas Yisrael. So if a psuadaka kohen married a Bas Yisrael, the question is whether they can eat truma or not. So we said it has to do with the argument of he got engaged to a Bas Yisrael, married not allowed to, but he got engaged to a Bas Yisrael, and the argument would be the same as Rameh. Rameh would hold that that she's not entitled to eat truma even though she's engaged to a kohen, because even though he didn't yet commit the Aveda by living together, the fact is anticipating that's good enough. And Shimon and Abelazar hold that no, that she can eat truma. And then they want to try to say that you cannot compare the two cases at all, that even according to Abelazar and Shimon, that allows you to eat with engages because this kohen can marry other people, so therefore he has the power to make another woman eat truma. But in the case of a psuadaka, he cannot marry anybody. And then they want to segue from that into what about a psuadaka marrying a bas gerim? Maybe Bas Geir is not a member of the kol, so they could provide truma. So therefore, according to Elazar, even in the case of engaged to an ordinary Bas Yisrael, should be able to provide truma. And the Gemara says the question asked by Rabbi Ishia, and it wasn't resolved. So let's talk about that very question. It says the Gemara, we're left in Zion, Amad Aleph, we're about 15 lines on the top of the page, right in the middle of the line. Gufa, let us analyze that question. Question. So this person who is a Ptsuadaka, who's not allowed to marry a member of the Kol, and he happened to be a Kohen, should also Bas Gedim. He married the daughter of Gerim. Mao, what is the din? Is he allowed to be married to them? There's two questions. So is he allowed to be married to them? There's two issues there. One is, as a kohen, is a psuadaka able to give someone else, to marry a bas gedim, because a kohen cannot marry geidus. Can he marry the daughter of the geir or geidus? That's what we'll see. And question one, question two is, as a psuadaka as well, is he allowed to marry a geir if they are considered a member of the kol? He's not allowed to. If they're not considered a member of the kol of the congregation, he could. So there are two different issues. And we're going to see we link the two issues together. So Truma, can he feed them with truma, provide them with truma? Says the Gemara, Ishti, Rabbeisha said silently, media didn't respond. The safe later on, asked Rabbeisha. A while later, also Rabachin, another great man came along, was a Shlakish of Sunsi, to ask the Rabbeisha on a totally different issue, who partially did resolve. Who was that great man? Shlakish. Rabbeisha said to Rabbeisha, he said, I don't understand. He said to him, Otu Rabbi Ishia, what could you respond to? Don't respond to. He asked me a question. I don't have any resolution. So that's why I didn't answer. So now the Gemara, the Rashi has a different interpretation how it works over here, whether it's the Gemara now discussing it or whether Rabbi Ishia himself is coming to a resolution. But the Gemara is not discussing Laman. According to who is this question? We're going to have an argument of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. They have two different arguments, but we link the two together. And the question is, if let's say the mother is Jewish and the father is a Gay, can that daughter marry a Kohen? It's an argument of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. That's argument number one. And argument number two, in that girl, is she considered a member of the Kol or she, and therefore a tzedakah cannot marry her, or she's not a member of the cult. So now the Gemara says as follows. Says the Gemara, so Ela Rabbi Yehuda, if we're going to follow the path of Rabbi Yehuda, as the Gemara will explain what Rabbi Yehuda holds, whether that this person, the tzedakah, has the full status of a kohen and is not allowed to marry anybody that is like a zayin, and all the laws that are forbidden for a kohen applies to him as well. So whether you follow that particular way, for sure he cannot marry the daughter of a ger, even though the mother is Jewish. Even if he does not have a kedusha of a kohen, just as a Yisrael, still a question. Tzedakah cannot marry someone from the kol. He's like cannot eat. And more explain. If he has a full status of a kohen, Rabbi Yehuda is of the opinion that bas ger zocher, that the daughter of the father is a ger, and the daughter of that union is kebas chol zocher, no different than the daughter of a chol zocher. She cannot marry a kohen. No, boss. So ilav b'kedusha kohen, and if it's not in kedusha, in other words, if you just follow this reason alone, he can never provide truma to her. And furthermore, let's say he doesn't have the status of a kohen. Just stam to Nakel still layachla. He cannot provide for her truma. Why? Because he's not allowed to marry her. The Amrin and Kalgelim, he could call the Kalgelim, he calls like two disparate reasons, and each reason, in either one, he cannot provide her with truma. So on the one hand, Yehuda holds that the daughter of a ger, father's a ger, is forbidden to a kohen. On the other hand, he holds even forbidden to a kohen, but still a member of the kol, which is not a problem. Just like a grusha. A grusha is a divorcee, is a member of the kol. You cannot marry a kohen. So it has nothing to do with each other, whether you can marry a kohen or not, or whether you're a member of the kol. Two different issues. Okay, so then forget that. So according to Rabbi, there's no shaila. He cannot provide truma. No, but also according to Rabbi Yasi. Either Rabbi Yasi holds exactly the opposite in both go through guys. First of all, he holds that she is a member of the kol, and also he holds that the kohen, he does not have the status of a kohen. He doesn't have the state of a kohen. So in other words, for both reasons, he's allowed to marry, and therefore he could provide truma. Whether he has the full status of a kohen, nevertheless, he's allowed to marry the daughter if the mother is Jewish. They're not paying lam big yishos kohen. Whether he does not have the full status of a kohen, she's not a member of the kol. And again, you see here that the fact that on the one hand, we can kind of that she's allowed to marry a kohen, and yet at the same time, he's not a member of the kol. Marrying a kohen and a member of the kol are two different issues. Ben lav kedusha zakai, achla you can eat big kedusha zakai, achla yeah. Why, if the kedusha zakai could the Amar Rabbi Yasi holds, if even if both parents are gadim, bitik sheilakuna, he holds that even if both parents are gadim, but the daughter, the next generation, is mutter to a kohen. So on the one hand, so he's allowed to marry her, therefore can provide truma. And if you're going to tell me that he doesn't have kedusha, he knows it's not even an issue. But there's not the other issue, which is about kol, is not an issue here either. Why? That the kol of Gadim, even the children, are not part of the kol. Ella, so who's the Rabbi Shaila? He couldn't even be placed. Ella liba the high time. We have another Tana. Now we learned Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says he holds differently. He holds Isha Bas Gadim. He holds that a woman, the daughter of Gadim, both parents, he holds the difference. Both parents are single parents. If both parents are Gadim, cannot marry Kohen. But if the mother is a full-fledged Yid, even though the father is Gadim, she could marry Kohen. So now Yaakov before is Kavanaki. So therefore, if the mother is a Yid, even though the father is a Gaid, she's allowed to marry a Kohen. The father's a Goy, we learned before, is Pogum, cannot marry a Kohen. But if the father's a Gaid, she couldn't marry a Kohen. So the following is a question. And Rashi has two different versions as to actually what the question is. Is the question in the case where both parents are Gadim regarding the Truma, or the question in the case where the mother is a Yid and the father is a Gadim? The question is as follows. Just because we say that she's allowed to marry a Kohen, does that also automatically make her a member of the Kol of Tzedakah can marry her, or one thing not do with another? And that question is only Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Now, what is kashas mitoisibo? Do we only add kashas that she's allowed to marry a Kohen? And therefore she can eat. Or maybe what do you call it? We also add kedusha that she's now a member of the kol, and if she's a member of the kol, then he cannot marry her. So Rashi here twists around the word kashas and kedusha. Before kashas meant kol and kedusha meant Koyin. Now Rashi says all the way around. Kashrus means koyin, and kedusha means kol. So we didn't resolve it. So the Gemara continued. The Gemara itself will try to resolve it. But if you couldn't resolve it, the Gemara is going to try to resolve it. He came from the south. Also, he came along with him, and he said, "It follows Ben Layin. How do you know up to a daka koyin? How do you know up to a daka koyin? Shenosa bas gating, who married the daughter of a gay shemachila betruma that could feed truma." He brings a pasuk that if the father is a gay and the mother is a yid, the tzudaka can feed the truma. What is that? It says, can provide with truma. So the koyin ki yiknen nefesh kinyan kaspoy. It said in the pasuk, if a koyin will be koyin nefesh kinyan kaspoy, and we'll bring a special pasuk here, is yoichel boy. That what? That the kinyan kaspoy may eat from it. Leman. Who are we talking about over here? If we're talking about according to Rabbi Yehuda, now the Gemara is trying to bring a proof from here. If the Bryce is referring to Rabbi Yehuda, what we just said before, Yehuda holds that you can never eat. Whether it's a kohen and therefore it's a problem that the bas gave him. Bein lab the problem is not a member of the kol. Cannot eat. So how can it be including that? He holds, of course you can eat. Not a member of the kol. A lot of married kohen. How about you can eat. And the lab of Blezim Yaakov. This Bryce follows the Blezim Yaakov. Ushmamina kashtas itoisabov ochla comes to teach you here that what that she can that they made her kosher, that a kohen is allowed to marry her, but she's not a member of the kol, and therefore. Bas getting allowed to marry a kohen, but not a member of the kohen, therefore he can marry her, and that's why you can eat over there. Shema Mino is a good raya. Itmar. So we said before that if a kohen marries a grusha or a kohen gadol marries an almana, we said that what if they get married, obviously he becomes a halal and can no longer eat truma. Now, what about instead of marrying Rav? Rav says yesh chuppah lipsulus. What happens if you only made a chuppah? And according to Rashi's version, we're talking about you didn't do kiddushin at all, nor did you consummate. All you did was a chuppah. Because if you did kiddushin first, then according to the May, the moment you did kiddushin with someone that's possible to you, she's already a halal. She can no longer eat truma. So what's that I was talking about? Rav is saying over here, according to everybody, if you did chuppah is the immediate step right before the bia, and therefore it's much closer to bia than a kedushin, which is 12 months away, which is like a separate activity altogether. So he holds yesh chuppah lepsula. So, for example, if a kohen gadol brings an almana into the chuppah, and even though they had no physical relation whatsoever, and there was no kedushin at all, nevertheless she's possible from truma. And she cannot, even if she's a bas kohen, she cannot eat from him because he wasn't a kohen. But she cannot eat from her family because he already did a chuppah. Shmuel says, "Ain't chuppah of soul." He says, not only if there was a bia, when is chuppah kohen if it anticipated a bia, but if he didn't anticipate the bia, it's an issur, and therefore she doesn't forfeit her right for truma in her family. Shmuel, Rab, who was older than him, and he determined a diment. Actually, the machlekes whether his name was Abba and whether Abba was a term of image or respect, or the other way around. Abba's made it to me. Maybe the girl was under 3 years old in the day, which means that this chuppah can never have anticipated that it'll turn into a bia, because under 3 years old there's no bia that counts. And Abba's made it that it doesn't disqualify her to continue truma. There's no bia in the chuppah. We learned, how do we know that the two are linked? So he says, we learned that the bia will not passel because under 3 years old, the bia does not count as a bia. And if bia doesn't passel, surely the chuppah, which is a step lower than bia, surely doesn't disqualify her from, even though she's, let's say, asa to the kohen, let's say, asa, imagine this is a grusha, or at the age of 3 already, or an almana at the age of a kohen gadol. It does not asa her at all. Because the whole purpose of chuppah is to bring it to a bia. But under 3, it is not shaykh bia. After we learn, if she's 3 years old, miskadesh she be mekudesh to bia. If a yavam comes on her after 3 years old, because that's a valid bia. The chayav, in other words, if she's married and somebody commits adultery, they are chayiv. Matam is boila, and also if she's a niddah at the age of 3, she's matami her husband latam and mishkav takni, that he becomes tamei like her. That if he lies on 10 mattresses on top, all 10 mattresses have the same status of tumah. And what is it? Metame. It's metame is like by a zov. It's metame oichel and mashkin. Not metame adam mekalim, but metame oichel and mashkin, food and drink. Nisas lekoyin, if she's married to koyin when she's 3, oichel is betruma, she's entitled to truma because it's considered married. If one of the psulim marries her at the age after 3 or had relations with her after 3 years old, for example, a cholol, a koyin cholol, or let's say a mamzer, or an almana koyin gadol, or grusha koyin hedget, is posla. Then what? Posla, she's disqualified from being from Bashal Yemechel, the Mishla the Bid. After 3 is all over. The Mishla the Chup, Habachuz Bashal Yemechel, the Mishla the Bid, the Mishla the Chup. But if under 3 is all sin, there's no beer, no chuppah, because even Avali made it. Chuppah has to be able to turn into beer. Under 3, there's no potential for beer. Shmamino Azaraya. Omar Rami Bacham comes with Bacham and he argues with them both. He says, you both say that this is according to everybody. I'm going to say that this in itself is contingent on a machlekes or hinges on a machlekes which we had in the Mishnah before between Rameh and Shimon and Rabbi Lazar. Yes, chuppah psula. This whole concept of whether there's a chuppah to a psula is a machlekes Rameh and Rabbi Lazar Shimon. Remember, Rameh says that if she got engaged, she's already disqualified. Rameh is a kedushin, possibly chubinami possibly. Rameh, if maduch kedushin, which is more remote from the beer, and yet already disqualifies her from the truma. So surely, if they had chuppah, it passes her. And Abelazar Rab Shimon, who says that the kedushin is not passer, so too chuppah is not passer. Dam kedushin passer, chuppah not passer. So how do you know? How do you know? Dilma at can like come on a mayor. In fact, even a mayor, how do you know? Maybe a mayor. The reason why mayor says kedushin passes, elab kedushin, because he did a kedushin, and kedushin the Torah recognizes the kandala. You acquired it to a certain extent, and you have certain kinyanim there. So therefore, and anticipate the beer. So therefore, we say you're disqualified from being truma. Aval chuppah, but when it comes to chuppah. The like Kanala, but chuppah, since he did not make kedushin prior to chuppah, he did chuppah on its own. So chuppah is not koine. Like no, and the Gemara in kedushin that hey, we talked about chuppah is koine. Talking about there was kedushin beforehand, but chuppah that is not koine on its own. Even a married doesn't get disqualified. Or fakert inami. Or at can the Gemara Rabbi Shimon Haslam. You know, but Rabbi Shimon say that does not disqualify you because kedushin. Why it's so remote? It's so distant from beer. Like Krevel beer, it's not close to beer at all. Avo chuppah the Krevel beer, but chuppah which is next to beer. Hachinami the apostles. If you want, we can say, if you want to say that it's totally hinging on the machlekes, I'll say it's a different machlekes. The pluk to the hani tonight, it hinges actually on the machlekes the following tonight. Tanya, we learned nisu. Let's say the following people married a kohen, zu v'zu, this and this, who are this and this. Sheidas of psulas, whether they were permitted to marry a kohen, whether they were forbidden to marry a kohen. Or they enter the chuppah and they had no relations. The din is when the time comes by and he still doesn't take care of her, she can eat from his assets. So too she's allowed to eat truma. Usually it's after 12 months. She's allowed to eat truma. Now, the Gemara now asks. It says over here, nichnasu. Since we're breaking it down, there's Nisa married, and then there's Nichnas Uluchuppah. So Nichnas Uluchuppah means that it's not the same as Nisa. So you know what I'm saying? Nichnasu Miklal the Nisa Nisa Mamish. Because it says over here Nichnasu, it means that when it says Nisu, it means that the Mamish got married. He got married in Nisa Mamish. Yet it says over here that if Nisu, the Braisa starts off Nisu, they get married, Sheidas of Psulas, they can eat and eat Truma. Now, if it's talking about apostle and she got married, how can she eat Truma? She's disqualified. So what's going on here? How can it be? Yeah, how can it be? So it means what it means is the Braisa is explaining itself. When we said nichnasu, we don't. When we say nisu, we don't mean literally got married. If you got married to Psula, she's disqualified truma. So how come over here you allowed truma? Because the Tanakama, when it says nisu, it meant nichnasu. He meant enter the chuppah, didn't have relations. Uktani, and it comes to tell you that chuppah does, even though they're chuppah to Psulas, they're allowed to eat truma. So that's they're allowed to eat truma. That's like Shmuel. And Rabbi Shmuel benoish Rabbi Yechon Beroika, but Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Yechon Beroika, says Kol. He says the following rule: Kol should be also machil. But if she would have consummated the marriage, she'd be able to eat, and chupasa machilta. And the chuppah also allows her to eat. But chosha ain't be also machilta. But if she say she's marrying to an apostle, that will turn into a halala, and therefore she's from it truma. Then even my chuppah ain't chuppah machilta. So that's the chayil exactly like it. So the chayil machlek Rabbi Shmuel, machlek Rabbi Shmuel ben Yechon Beroika, and the Tanakama. So how do you know? How do you know that's Pshat Dilma? Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Yechon Beroika could have measured it. How do you know Rabbi Shmuel ben the son of Yechon Beroika holds? And the chuppah is what does it. Not a chuppah that does not lead to a bia. Disqualifies it. Maybe it's not the chuppah. Since the chuppah follows a kedushin, the kedushin itself, according to Rameh, is qualified. It's the kedushin as a qualifier, not the chuppah. But in the case Taka where you had chuppah without any kedushin prior, maybe Rav is right, or maybe Shmuel is right. That doesn't disqualify her. Maybe Dilma Rabbi Shmuel that if you want kedushin, can no longer eat. Says the Gemara, how can that be? If so, how can you learn that way? Pshat and Rabbi Shmuel, you look at his words. Hi kol she'ein bi asamachilta ein chipos machilta. The wording he used was if it were consummated, you wouldn't eat trumas. Even the chuppah you cannot eat truma. According to you, kol she'ein bi asamachilta. If you cannot consummate it, ain't kasma machilta. It's the kedushin that's the problem. Then the money cannot allow her to eat it. Baile. So Gemara says no raya. I still say that I maintain that Lav Daf Bishmol holds the chuppah. So why does he use the word chuppah? Because Dilma Aidi the Amma Tanakama chuppah because he's responding to the Kama. Tanakama uses the word chuppah. Amalin Amma chuppah. It says also chuppah. Okay, this ends the Gemara of Tuesday. Have a good day.